Good morning. Welcome back to TNW TV. We're here with Georgia Francis King, Ideas Editor at
Hi, guys.
Quartz. Georgia, welcome.
Lovely to be here.
What are you doing here at the conference?
I'm here to talk about the future, is the way that I often try to say it.
That's very vague.
Well, futurists are very vague as well, I would probably argue. I think that it's really important that we are looking at responsible ways that we can not only just be working to define the problem. People are very, very good at defining the problems at tech conferences, but not very good at being solution-oriented. So I always try to kind of force people, whenever I'm interviewing them, to be spending less time talking about what the issues that we have are that we're already very aware of, and move them toward thinking about what the solutions can be.
How successful are you normally in that?
Well, I think that there are different ways that we can look at fixing some of the issues that, like, I'm hearing everyone talk about in the stages, like, you know, implicit bias and algorithms and those kinds of things. One of the first ways, and the role that I play through journalism, is trying to excite and educate the public. I think that public awareness is really important, but it can be very hard to get people interested in topics that they don't recognize that they should be interested about, whether that is quantum computing or, yeah, that gets eye rolls a lot of times.
How do you stay optimistic? So if you're solution-based rather than problem, how do you stay happy, especially when it comes to environmental problems, things like that?
Well, I think that taking things one issue, one moment at a time. I think that when we think too far out into the future, that's when we start to get really pessimistic about things. And also, it stops us being focused on controlling the things that we can control. And I know that this in my personal life as well, if I could take the time back that I spend worrying about things in the future that never happened. So I try to always just look at what can we do right now versus talking about problems that are so far off in the future that don't even exist yet. There are enough problems for us to talk about right now. And I mean, climate change is that's a tough one. That's a tough one because we can't. No journalist, no conference can control people ratifying the Paris Accords and, you know, things like that. But I think that we can look at what things can we control, and whether that is your single-use plastic consumptions.
That might be the perfect example, because I think climate change is a problem in which you have the juxtaposition of, you know, understanding the macro problem. So how bad is it going to get, and what are all the factors contributing to that? But on the other hand, if you try to make it tangible for people, then the solutions are so small, or they might feel so insignificant towards the larger problem that you're also explaining, that people kind of short circuit or so? Is it?
Yeah, no, certainly. So I think that we can't expect everyone to go and lobby the oil companies. We can't, and that is a very important role, like public policy and people pressuring and protesting, because that is how you get governments to change policies. And so there are ways that we can try to impact those bigger long-term things. But if you're not one of those people that wants to or has the ability to, because it takes a lot of time, to be pressuring government in that way, there are small things that you can do to at least make a little bit of a difference. At the same time, I do fear that people are just looking for a solution to make themselves feel better rather than making the world better. And the whole like plastic straw thing was a great example of, like, I live in New York. I'm Australian, that's the accent. It's not what New Yorkers sound like anymore. But I would see everyone, like, you know, making their big, like, to-do about, like, I'm not going to have my plastic straw, but then go and get their takeaway salad for lunch that day in a plastic container. Or then, like, the thing that always irks me is then, like those cool hipster, like, kids with the, like, you know, that, like, then watching them, like, put out cigarette butts on the street, and, like, cigarette butts as, like, is such a huge problem for our oceans. And so I think that we can get very high and mighty and picky about what sacrifices we choose to make. And just because you've sacrificed a straw does not suddenly mean that you are helping the environment.
It's bad, because that's kind of the thing that. So I might be categorized as a hipster.
I think we all would. You guys
Probably,
are like wearing like multicolored, funky, ugly sneakers.
You have blue pants. Come on.
Yeah, and I'm like land of Nikes here right now
Awesome,
as well.
yeah.
And I used to live in Portland, Oregon, so like I'm only allowed to wear Nikes, basically.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, so that's always something that I struggle with, right? Because you can't embrace everything, so you can do all the small bits, and then what is the point where you can kind of feel good about yourself, or when are you kind of virtue signaling?
Yeah, are you allowed to even feel good about yourself? I guess it's kind of a selfish sort of take on a bigger problem, isn't it? It's like, what can I do to make myself feel okay with things?
Exactly. And I think that that's where we have to not just consider what the action is, but the intent behind the action. Do you... Again, I don't want to discourage people from taking those actions, but if you really want to feel good, wouldn't it feel better to understand the problem rather than just, actioning a solution? Yeah. So, and that's kind of the role that I feel that journalism plays
Absolutely.
in some ways on conferences like this, to expose you to those kinds of ideas.
Totally. You're ideas editor at Quartz.
Yes.
What does that mean?
I edit ideas. It is the coolest title that I will have.
What is an idea?
That is such a high-minded question. Do you want to write an article about that? An idea in the Quartzy sense of it's basically our opinion section. So I work with all of our outside contributors, and I'm often scouting people at conferences like this.
What was the best idea that you've seen in the past month, let's say?
One of my favorite articles that I've published this year, the title that I think we ran on it was Silicon Valley Isn't to Blame for AI Bias, Look at Aristotle. And it was a historical lens looking at different philosophers and how they created this notion of binary thinking, which is now embedded, of course, in like the very core parts of all of our computer programs. But life is not binary. And the systems that we've created in order to try to replicate it and to live within it are binary. And so this author in particular is creating a quantum system for categorizing different. I'm wondering like how nerdy I should go into this. For like different NLP, for being able to try to help computers look at the things around them contextually rather than it just being a 1 or a 0.
So teaching computers the gray area.
Yeah, because the gray area is all it's all context, right?
What's to be gained from that? Like, what is, in your eyes, what is the biggest thing to be gained from that?
Well, I think that even, a computer would only be able to define someone, like on a very base level, like it does get more nuanced than this, but like a male or a female. And so, for people in the trans population or like, lots of like intersectional race things or sexuality fluidity, computer systems are not set. You can teach a computer the correct input in order to be able to classify what that is, but then you can't really teach it how to you have to teach it how to learn as well.
Isn't that also kind of a human problem? I always have the feeling, so there's this discussion, and I think humans, we tend to put everything into boxes. We really tend to categorize everything because it makes it easier to process or easier to think about or easier to judge, I think, probably. And even whether you're saying that easier to categorize, easier to process, those are all like machine, like that's how like, the algorithms are processing this as well. Right. And yeah, so do you think it's because of that kind of human trait that is what we're teaching teaching our computers, or? For
sure, yeah. But what we also have to remember is that we have to speak, so we need the computers to understand us. They don't have any like construct of language, so we have to change the way that we're speaking in order to be able to program them. And because we are non-binary creatures, we have to categorize things in binary terms in order to like teach computers that. Like even if you're looking at like GAN networks or you're training a neural net on like cats and dogs, again, like is it or isn't it? Versus actually, that wasn't the best example because I think something normally is either a cat or a dog genetically. I don't think that you could combine those two. Or like, what about a donkey and a horse is an ass?
What's that called? Yeah.
Ass, which like I want to say ass in my Australian accent, but that just doesn't work, right? That's one of those examples of something that is actually in between those two.
Or a liger.
But again, a liger. Do those actually exist?
Yeah. You know what also exists?
What?
Grizzly ice bears.
That sounds terrifying.
Right?
And I come from Australia, like the land of the terrifying animals.
And there was a really sad story about them, that there was one female grizzly ice bear who had babies, but I think they all died because they had genetic defects or something. And she was all lonely up there in the near Arctic, and she couldn't find anyone to mate with because neither the grizzly bears or the ice bears felt attracted to her. And then I think she did find someone in the end, and then all
I feel that
it was a very sad story. I'm sorry, it's very early in the morning.
I feel that it's like a metaphor for like other things in life right now. In some ways, the grizzly ice bear is all of us in some ways.
We're all grizzly ice bears. So, is there anything that you're looking forward to seeing at the conference?
I was really excited to see James Bridle speak yesterday. I think that the work he's doing is really fantastic. I'm looking forward to, I want to see as much of the art tech stage as I can, but I'm emceeing the machine learning stage for most of the time that I would want to be seeing my friends over there. But Carolyn Cinder,
We're
so
on live streams.
I'll just be on my phone,
so you can have your
backstage.
phone, headphones on, not listen to what anyone is saying, and just watch the other stage.
Well, Carolyn Cinders and Sugwen Chen and Rama Allen and a bunch of friends from New York are all speaking on that stage. So I'm excited for that.
Cool. And the after party as well?
What is happening with the after party? Alcohol is happening after the limoncello last night as well. Yes.
I think so, yeah. It's around the corner here. And I think there's a lot more to see today. I think we have to start wrapping up. So thank you very much, Georgia.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Grizzly ice bears for life.
Yes. Yeah. Sad and lonely.
Yeah. And keep watching.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait. We have one more. No.
Oh,
yeah?
Can we do it?
We have one more thing.
So we have a daily newsletter called Big Spam, and
We're doing this really quickly?
really fast. We made a zine, and we wanted to tell you about the zine and ask about what you think of our idea for the zine, because you're the ideas editor.
Okay.
So a quick.
Big Spam. Why did you decide to call it Spam?
Because it's sort of like it's a daily newsletter, so it's sort of like kind of capitalizing on the fact that people don't like getting a lot of emails, and we send them anyway. But they're great. They're great. TNW.to/newsletter.
Do we call spam, like in our inboxes? What is the relationship to the semi meat product?
So
I'm using the word semi very.
So we don't know. We also have.
Do you
spam.
actually have spam?
Yes, we're passing it out in a second.
I feel really great to say that I recently, for environmental reasons, went back vegetarian. So I will, if you.
Shit. Yeah, we're really.
Amsterdam has been fantastic with like weird vegetarian options.
No, it's
so
amazing.
I would like to see it next year's Next Web, some jackfruit vegan spam.
Absolutely.
Please. Thank you for... This is one of the odder interviews that I've done in some time. I've never been presented with spam on camera before.
Okay. Oh, we have to go, I think. It's disgusting.
Do you want to smell
She's vegetarian.
I'm
Don't
good.
be awful. Leave her alone. All right. Okay, done. Sorry. Bye.